How's it going, guys? I'm Tyson. I'm your journalist and videographer with Construction Business TV. I'm joined here today with Eric. Eric, with a construction solutions company. So, and you're a partner with Construction Solutions Company. Is that correct?
I am, yeah.
And how many partners are there?
So there's I have two business partners. There's three of us.
So were you part of the original group that started this company, or did you come in sometime later down the road?
My partner Jim and I founded it.
Excellent. How long ago was that?
2012, May of 2012.
Okay, you're coming up on 10 years.
Yeah.
You got anything fun planned for that?
Hopefully just surviving another year.
Yep. That's always the hope. That's always the plan. All right. Well, the first thing that stuck out to me with Construction Solutions Company, like obviously, is just the name, the word solutions in the company. And I know that people don't just throw a title out of a hat. There's usually a philosophy behind the name of a company, especially a construction business. So I assume that there's something behind the term solutions with you guys. So I wanted to pick your brain on that.
Yeah. So I think solutions comes from the fact that we try to be a little bit different in the marketplace. We try to have the technologies and provide delivery methods that maybe a national contractor would, but still have a boutique or, smaller feel. Both my business partners are heavily involved in the day-to-day client relationship as we build buildings. And so, but at the same time, we have the technology and the infrastructure and the processes that we try to be different in the marketplace because we can perform like a large regional or national company.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What inspired you personally? Like, what inspired you to get into this field? It probably goes way back.
I don't know. I don't know if inspiration is the right word. I worked for my uncle who had a fairly sizable construction company in Eastern Idaho, along with my partner, Jared. We both worked for him. He was a project manager. I was our business development guy. And when my uncle retired, I had to find a job. So I went to work for another contractor, and it just all kind of came full circle when Jared's brother worked for me. And then that company went out of business. And so that's kind of how we started our business. Was not necessarily an inspiration, but out of necessity. But it afforded us, a little bit of freedom and to run a business like we wanted to, and, maybe do things differently than our previous employers have done things.
Okay. So now I'm curious of like, what would you say, what are some of the big things that you do that you wanted to do in a more unique way than companies you had worked for in the past?
So we'll just kind of start with our culture.
Mm-hmm.
We try to do things as a company that maybe definitely our employers didn't. So we have a compensation structure for our management team, our project managers and superintendents that is based a little bit on performance and kind of the theory of entrepreneurialship. So the idea that the guys who work for us actually own their projects, and that's how some of their compensation works. And then outside of that, we try to do stuff as a team. Like we have a corporate outing every summer where we take all of our employees and their families to a theme park, and we hang out for a day or two and, just kind of have a good time. And then we have our yearly strategic planning meeting, and we'll have a destination and we'll go for 4 or 5 days, spend a couple of days of planning, and then kind of do some, fun team building exercises that maybe a company of our size wouldn't necessarily do. And we don't necessarily tie it to overall company performance, but more just along the lines of developing the right culture with our employees.
I like that. And you used a word that stuck out to me. I don't think I've ever heard it before. It's intrapreneurial.
Entrepreneurialship. So,
Yeah,
and I don't even know if it's a word. It could be just like an Ericism.
maybe something you
So,
coined.
yeah, entrepreneurialship is, you have serial entrepreneurs who start businesses. How I view entrepreneurship is that I expect my project managers to have their own business inside of our business and have a rapport with our clients and think about revenue and think about business development and think about financial performance within what they can control. And so we kind of try to promote that within our company, that your project, you need to own it. I mean, you just have to own it. You have to take the pride and the ownership as if it was your own baby. And if you're successful in that, it tends to lead to future projects with the same clients. Like I would say that 80% of our business comes from repeat clients where we've done a project for them. Our managers do an exceptional job of developing that rapport with our clients, and it just leads to future business. And so I don't know if it's a real word, but I tend to coin it every once in a while.
If it ends up serving as a good business philosophy anchor, it doesn't really matter if it's in the dictionary or not.
Yep.
I like it. And that's a good segue into something else that I came across on your website. I was looking under your projects tab, kind of looking at your portfolio of things you've done in the past. This is really cool. You've got a map of the United States and dozens of projects that stretch as far west as Oregon, as far east as the Dakotas, Minnesota. And that's even more impressive to me now, knowing that you guys have been in business for 10 years, that you've been able to expand that far. And it made me wonder, like, what would you say has been the key element to infusing into a company to give them the success that you've had to be able to do this? Does that make sense?
I think so. So I don't know if I don't necessarily correlate success with our expansion, because a lot of that expansion was early on and it was out of necessity to survive. So really, when we started our business, we kind of got fortunate. So when we first started, it was my partner Jim and I would go hustle to work and he would do it. Then we get this phone call one day from this guy. He's like, "Hey, I need you guys to do this kitchen remodel. It's horrible work." And, it's night work. I can't find anybody to do it. So we end up doing it because, basically I just held my partner's tool bag and he'd be like wrench, hammer, nail gun, whatever. And we did that first project. The guy calls me back and unbeknownst to me, the company that he worked for was one of the largest franchisees in the world. And they're like, "We have 65 more of these kitchen remodels from Washington State to Minnesota, and we have nobody to do them. You guys want to do them?" And so, out of necessity to survive, that's kind of where maybe Solutions was born, as we figured out how to build the model. And then we hired the right guys, some guys that we had worked with in the past and trusted. And we just facilitated that little program, that 65 remodels. And then that same group came back to us and we're like, we have all these re-imagings where we have to do all the exterior renovations and then redo all the lobbies so that they're up to the new standard. We have 100 of those in the same kind of states. Would you guys do that? And so that's kind of how we grew organically, I guess, is we just did it out of necessity at first. And then we figured out how to model that system. And because of that experience or those experiences, we were able to get into other markets like, we do a lot of retail, a lot of restaurants. That's been our bread and butter forever, just born out of those experiences.
Yeah, that's what I like scrolling down and looking over this. I'm seeing, yeah, a lot of restaurants, a lot of franchises, a lot of commercial buildings. And you say that that's been like your main clientele, you would say.
Yeah. And it's evolved though. COVID was hard on us because our largest single client, it is the king of fast food restaurants. So you probably can make a one or two guess and figure out who it is. But when COVID kind of hit last year, if our product mix, for lack of a better term, would be 15% like financial institutions, 15% medical, and then probably like another 15% of just basic commercial, and then the 55% would be that restaurant retail mix. And when COVID hit, all of our clients just pulled back the reins, and so we kind of had to evaluate what we were as an organization, and we retooled. And so going forward, we're developing 40 acres in the Phoenix metro area and looking at some other projects there. We've never really done residential, although both my business partners were born and bred and came up in the national home builder ranks. And so we've actually started doing some multifamily stuff. We've got a multifamily project in Pocatello, and we're in various stages in the Phoenix area at 2 other multifamily projects, because when COVID hit, we kind of had to retool and evaluate where we are and maybe expand our services. I mean, that retail restaurant component will always be an integral part to our business, but we had to retool so that if we have another random virus that they just decide to shut our economy down, we need to have a myriad of services that allows us to weather storms like we've dealt with the last year.
It's important to kind of pivot, you should say, pivot your services and expand what you're willing to provide.
Correct.
And I like what you said, kind of become a little bit more well-rounded and evolve. I think that this last 12 months prompted evolution for a lot of people and a lot of businesses. So that's something I was actually curious about, is how you guys have managed through the last 12 months. You said that you've been taking on multifamily projects. What is that? Is that just a neighborhood, or what does that mean?
All right. So yeah, kind of a neighborhood or like an apartment complex. So it kind of varies. So we have a project in Pocatello that we're working on, which is it's a restoration of it was like a city block that used to be a school, and we're restoring it and building like 30 something residential units on that little city block, and it'll kind of have like a urban feel to it. And then we're in different processes in the Phoenix market, which is our other main market, kind of where we see some of our resources going, because unfortunately in Idaho, and specifically Eastern Idaho, you have we have 2 or 3 really sophisticated, excellent competitors. And then we have some guys that probably take some of the market share that that aren't in that same level of sophistication and performances where I think we hold ourselves. And so, to be a mid-size regional firm or mid-size construction firm, there can't be too many in Idaho Falls. And we have 2 guys that are pretty big, And then there's us and a couple of guys that are our size. And, you know, in an economy our size, we can't be that big. And so we've focused on Phoenix. But getting back to the multifamily, so we're looking at like what they call a garden apartment development, which is like 24 plexes, 3-story 24 plexes, pool. You see it in, they've done some of that stuff on First Street. But we're looking at Phoenix for that. And then we're looking at some urban stuff that we're in negotiations trying to put together, which is like urban multifamily. So small city blocks, 12 to 15 units, with some of those urban amenities that you wouldn't necessarily see in Idaho Falls.
Okay. I had another thought. I'm trying to figure out how to kind of segue it. Kind of coming back to you were talking about the, I guess the market or the economy in the East Idaho Falls area. I guess everybody around in this area knows that it is a very rapidly expanding place to live, as far as development and people moving in, more buildings coming up. I'm sure that you probably have paid more attention to this than the average person having your hand in this kind of field. Do you foresee certain things coming, and are you preparing yourself and your business to be able to adapt and accommodate and provide services for developments as they streamline into this area? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we try to. It is rapidly expanding, but I would almost contend it's a very interesting, it's an interesting time to live in Idaho Falls because the resources that make construction viable are really constrained right now. So, you know, you have all these commodities that are up 200 to 400%, varying from steel, lumber, and then we have a broken supply chain because of COVID. And then you have all of this demand because you have a natural migration from people leaving the coast to come into what I like to call the I-15 corridor. I mean, basically everywhere from where we are, all down through Utah, Vegas, Arizona, to like a place like Dallas. That corridor is being bombarded with people moving there, and so we have significant constraint on materials, and then land. Like there's very little land out there, and so figuring out how creating developments is an interesting. It's interesting right now. I guess I don't really have a good answer because there's just so many constraints that make, you know, putting projects together difficult. And in addition, costs have escalated significantly. So
yeah,
that was a horrible attempt at an answer, but we try to, and, you know, we built relationships and we spend some of our resources, you know, courting national clients that would come here, be it restaurants or retail, but from like you know, looking forward and being ready as far as developing goes, it's hard to identify value is probably the easiest way to say is like, I'm absolutely for finding opportunity. It's just, it's hard to find it in this current economy.
And we're kind of like, just as it has been for the last year, we're living in, I guess, uncertain times. So the time to evolve, I guess, hasn't really stopped yet. You have to just continue to roll with the punches as they come.
Right.
Um, and you brought something up that I wanted to ask about. You talked about like one of your most important things to you as a business is just continuing to provide value to your clients and treating them, the way they need to be treated, making them feel valuable. And looking at this, like I said, looking at this map, looking at all the things that you guys have done across the country and the variety of clients that you work with, I want to know, like, in what ways do you provide that unique value to your client and make them feel like they are your top priority?
So I think it's a couple things. So we try to, there's two segments to it. So the first part is the customer service and the communications part of our business. So we feel like communication is our queen bee role. Like if you've read Clockwork by Mike Michaelowitz, he talks about like every business has their queen bee role. Ours is communication. And so we've invested in technology that allows us to communicate with owners, because typically when you have strain in relationships, it tends, in many cases, comes down to like a communication breakdown. So we really focus on communication through documentation, daily communication, and then the customer service aspect. And that includes my two business partners being very engaged in the day-to-day, being intimately involved in every project. And so they have relationships with our owners, and our owners know at the end of the day they can call any one of our owners and we'll be there to resolve an issue or answer a question, just stuff that comes with our projects. And sometimes if you're a bigger contractor, your leadership team might not necessarily be that intimate, but we've made it a priority where my two business partners are. And then on the other aspect is we try to add value through services. So we're not just a general contractor. So we develop for ourselves. So we can help an owner with entitlements, identifying ground. We have good relationships with commercial real estate brokers in town. So we kind of have a pulse on where opportunity lies in ground in eastern Idaho and I guess in Arizona as well. So we have those relationships so we can help them identify ground. We can leverage those relationships with the commercial brokers. So if, say, an owner wants to build an office building but needs a tenant, so we can develop a little additional value in his building, we can help with that. We'll oversee design. So we have relationships with a couple of very good architects in town. So we'll oversee the design, work with the city to have stuff rezoned. And basically, if you have an idea but you don't know where to start, we can take you from just that idea and get you to the finish line with a new building or a new project and try and make it as painless as possible. And we feel like we do a good job of adding value in that segment.
That's where the solutions comes in, right?
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
That is very cool. I guess kind of backing up, I feel like I need to ask this. Backing out of the scope of focusing just on construction solutions company to the trade of construction as a whole, like we're in our area specifically, there's a lot of development expansion. There's a lot of need for hands in the construction industry, in the blue collar industry, and there's a big shortage of people to be able to fill those needs. I guess I want to ask, like, what fulfillment do you get in this line of work? What gets you up every day to come to work every day, or even going back to your early days where you were the one swinging the hammer? What's that fulfillment that you get from this line of work that you would want to share with other people?
All right, so I make this joke, but it is a joke, but at the same time, it's a very serious comment, and I mean it. Like, if I had to go back and, do things over again, I would have become a plumber, because I've yet to meet a middle-class plumber, or like every plumber that I know, every business owner that I deal with that is a plumber, they happen to be just, they have a lot of wealth, right? My personal opinion, and I've given it actually, I have a banker friend that he's one of my best friends. We've been dear friends for 12 years. He has a kid. His kid's in high school, and he's talking about where to go to college. And I was just joking around with him, sort of joking around. I was like, man, like you have no business to going to college. Like, you're going to go to college, you're going to rack up 50 or 60 grand in debt. You're going to get out of work. You're going to think you're worth 80 grand, but you're probably worth 14, 50 an hour. I was like, why wouldn't you just become a plumber, get paid 22 bucks an hour while you get through your apprenticeship? Then you start your own business. And by the time you're 40, you own a plumber. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it. The fulfillment I get from construction, to answer your question directly, is we have the opportunity to, drive around town. Like, I drive around town with my partners and their kids. My partners will be like, yeah, we built that building and that building. We can go to multiple cities and just identify our little stamp on this community. And I think that is rewarding. And if you're in the trades, you can do that exponentially more than we can, because your part, although a little bit smaller, it touches so many more things, and it's extremely hard to replicate, labor. I mean, if we're the one thing that will be the last thing that is automated, I guess is probably the easiest way to say it, is you still have to have labor to construct buildings. And at this point, the only thing they've been able to figure out how to automate is concrete buildings that look horrible. I mean, so the craftsmanship and the labor and the hard work that goes into construction, like, I think that'll be the last thing to go as far as automation goes. And I got to think that if I'm in the trades, it's got to be pretty fulfilling to drive around town if you're a carpenter or a plumber and electrician, and you can rattle off 60 or 70 projects you've worked on, tell your kids, like, I was involved in all of these things. I mean, that's pretty tremendous if you ask me. I'm glad that you guys you're promoting the trades. And I think that we probably all, as owners in construction, have an obligation to let people know there are opportunities out there. I mean, you can go to a university and get a construction management degree, but we've met with the College of Eastern Idaho a couple times, and they got a lot of really good programs out there, from plan reading, and I know that they have apprenticeship programs with like HVAC and plumbing. And I think that education is important, because I think that the days of conventional education are changing, and so I think we all play a role in making sure that our people coming up know that there's opportunities outside of getting an accounting degree. Not that isn't important, but that there are opportunities out there.
Absolutely. And like, you remind me of something. I watched some of your videos. I think it was on your Facebook page, and you talked about, I guess, your admiration of the up and coming generation, and how you worded it like they almost kind of get a lot of flack, like the term millennial gets a bad rap, and you see a lot of potential in that generation to be able to put their own sweat into things. Does that sound like do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so I actually remember the conversation, and yeah, I do. So I think that millennials, they do tend to get a bad rap, but they do things that maybe prior generations haven't. They're exceptional at thinking outside the box, and if your culture is right and you invest in culture, they're some of your best employees, because money isn't their main driver. Although money isn't an important driver to everybody, their main thing is feeling like they're valued at work. And I can certainly say for me, and my two business partners, we've been extremely blessed. We have amazing employees that have allowed us to grow as a company, to be a respected company, and provided us a lot of opportunities in our life that we might not have otherwise had. And I continually tell people a majority of my success comes from the people that I have on my team. Like I have a bunch of superstars, and they've helped me be far more successful than maybe I thought I ever would be. And so I owe them a debt of gratitude, and probably more than that, to be quite honest with you.
Very cool. I'm sure they'll be happy to hear that. I just have two questions before we wrap this up. The first one's a very broad, very open-ended question, and this could be in regards to what we're talking about now, like talking about the future generation, filling the gaps of this field, or it could be in regards to the future of your business. But I am curious of what is the most important thing that you would have to say, that you would have to relay to whoever may be viewing this interview?
I would say the most important thing that I could say is invest in construction. Like if traditional education isn't your bag, we need a ton of talent in our industry, because we touch so many different things, and there's a lot of innovation that goes into our business. We need talented, ambitious, out of the box thinkers in our industry. And the more people we have the more talent we have in our industry like that, the more we all succeed. And the great thing about our business is that it's never the same thing. Every day is different. Every day presents a new challenge and a new way to think about things. That's why the last 9 years has gone by really quick, because I haven't had very many days that are exactly like the previous one. Like every day is a new bag. Every day I wake up and there's different stresses, and there's different emotions and opportunities that arise. And that makes our job wonderful. Like I don't wake up and every morning and have to print out CPS reports and fall asleep at my desk. And that's awesome.
That's what keeps you going.
Yeah.
Who would you want, what kind of person would you want to see this interview, and what would you want them to do as a result of having seen it?
I mean, as a selfishly, as a general contractor, I would love for an owner to see this and understand that we really value our employees, and we really value providing exceptional services to clients. And then they call me up and be like, yeah, I totally want to use you. I mean, but I hope, but I think more important than that is I hope that, some young kid or somebody who maybe doesn't know the direction in which they want their life to go, who says, hey, maybe I should get into some form of the construction business. And I hope that maybe the blessings and fortune that I've had will fall on those people, because our industry is great, and it affords us a lot of opportunities. And I would hope that and want that for people that are young and looking for a direction in life. I think that's more important than somebody being like, hey, we're going to totally use you because we saw our interview. Now that would be wonderful, but I don't necessarily think it's the most important thing.
It's two different kinds of value, I
Yeah.
would say. I like that. So whether it's a corporate franchise owner or whether it's an 18-year-old kid looking for an apprenticeship, how could people best reach you? How could people best contact you?
Well, we're always looking for talent. They could send their resume to our administrative professional office at cscid.com. They can look us up on the website. They can drop into our office. We're always willing to talk to ambitious people. And I'm sure, as you're well aware, like talented people are very lacking in our industry right now because everybody's busy. So, they're just, I don't know another, I don't know anybody who's like, I got so many people, I don't know what to do with them. At least in our industry. I mean, I talk to my competitors, I talk to a lot of our subs, and everybody's in the same boat. Like, we want quality, ambitious people that are willing to come to work for us and make a better life for themselves.